Shutterwalk banned. Makes a lot of sense. Taunt Druid banned also makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, we looked at the bans. These are pretty much
broke
the two
trend.
Even Warlock, which we saw from Renman yesterday, and the Even Warlock has been, you know, one of the most popular Warlock archetypes for some time now, going back to the fall playoffs.
Yeah, pretty standard looking list from Ryvius here on the Even Warlock end as well. The one Dread Infernal, the one Geist. Does have a Siphon Soul in the list, and also, you know, it's got the Bone Mare tech, single copy of Plated Beetle, and the Double Ooze.
Shadow Flame as well is one thing we need to note.
Yeah, Shadow Flame is a worthy note, but I feel like, and personally, that's become quite standard in Evenlock a lot of times.
I'd say so.
It's such a good tool for pushing through Annoyatrons late in the game and just having that additional AoE spell for situations you need it. Like a lot of times versus like Token Druid, for instance.
Sure.
Just a good tool for pushing. And then on LionKing's side, hit the Shutterwalk Shaman list. 1 copy of Earthshock, 1 copy of Gluttonous Ooze, 1 Mind Control Tech, and 1 Sandbinder, a card that was included in the earliest versions of Shutterwalk. And I've seen players sometimes seemingly swear by this card. They just feel like it's such a good effect for fetching up a particular elemental. You know, you look at the 2 Glacial Shards and you look at the Grumble. Those are pretty key cards to the deck a lot of times. So being able to fetch them up can be quite important, but 4 mana is a lot to sink because the 4 mana cards, you know, that's part of your checklist. The Life Drinkers, the Sarnate Chain Gangs. It's tough to spend all that mana when sometimes you have to play defensive. Yeah,
Electro Storm Surge as well. So a lot of times Sandbinder just acts as another form of card draw that also fights for the board in a deck that really needs to just accelerate its card draw to get to the combo stages of the game. So I'd like that inclusion. It is a pretty tight list when you think about it in the grand scheme of things. We haven't seen players deviate too much from the standard because a lot of those cards are kind of necessary. And Shutterwalk, I think, is one of the most refined deck lists in the metagame currently. But pretty slow start here, but it's going to pick up pretty quickly because there's a pair of Mountain Giants in Ryvius' hand.
Yeah, slow is a subjective term, I suppose, in this instance. If Ryvius had been on coin this game, this would have been, you know, potentially a disaster for LionKing. But he does have some of the tools to check it right now. He's got a copy of Hex, has the Volcano in hand. So Ryvius, you know, the fact that he's got all this follow-up pressure, I think is quite important for the game plan here. You know, some players, I see them, they play stuff like Twilight Drake first to try to check for a Hex, but that can always become a disaster if your opponent has that Earthshock that they've included in the list. And being an open deck list format, you know, that's probably something he's going to stray away from as this game moves along.
Yeah, Ryvius debating between 2 drops there. No Spellstone in hand. I think that's the ultimate factor in the decision to play the Plated Beetle out first. It does kind of say delay Hooked Reaver as the one downside to this, but if he feels like he's going to have to weave it in eventually, he might as well weave it out early so that way later on in the game he has less variables when trying to get towards that Hooked Reaver. But tap Mountain Giant, pretty obvious play. LionKing does have the Hex to match up pretty nicely against it though.
Yeah, next couple of turns seem to be a bit planned out in this one, and you know, it's pretty straightforward. Yeah, standard looking stuff. Talking a little bit about these guys' resumes and you know, what this match means. I feel like this match could potentially be a lot more important for Ryvius than it is for LionKing, because you have to take into account the end of your point standings as well. Again, the #1 in the region in points gets an automatic seat to the World Championship for being the highest earner over the year. And for Ryvius right now, that race is with Tyler, who's also competing in this tournament and also has a decider match today. Yeah. Ryvius needs to win this match, because if he doesn't and Tyler does, that's going to start creating a gap in that points race. And, you know, we're talking 1 playoff, 1 championship left.
Yeah, and if Ryvius does lose, he hopes that Tyler would have qualified to the World Championship here.
Yeah.
Because that takes him out of the running for the point standings. But LionKing on the other side, LionKing has said that, you know, one of his biggest strengths is just kind of his perseverance. He's been in the scene since 2014. He's been having pretty good results since then, but never that just one breakout performance, never that big tournament win. And now he's qualified for a championship. This is kind of his opportunity to pay off all of that hard work that he's put in over the past 4 years.
Yeah, I mean, we talk a lot about consistency and how important that is. It's not just the player that wins the tournament that is the best player there. It's the players who constantly have those opportunities. And looking at LionKing, you know, this year he was able to secure top 4 at the 2018 Gold Series. In 2016, he won the Gold Series in Guangzhou, and 6 times he's made it out of the Gold Series qualifying bracket. Yeah. And we're talking thousands of players play in these things in this open tournament format.
Yeah.
There's so many players in it that I feel like it's hard to just make it through a field of that size, because you're going to need repetition. You're going to need number of games to show that you have an edge over the competition.
Yeah. That's right, but getting into this one, GoeLionKing played down. It is going to protect his Twilight Drakes from the possibility of Earthshock, and you can see Earthshock removed from the hand when the GoeLionKing came down, so Ryvius has that bit of information, taking away a little bit of the card advantage, or, well, I guess Ryvius had card advantage in the first place, but solidifying his card advantage, I guess, is a better way to put that. But this matchup oftentimes comes down to whether or not even Warlock can just stick a threat, right? Because
It's that checklist.
the threats snowball. It's not like other deck lists where the Shadowwalk Shaman just has an AoE match to everything. If one Mountain Giant sticks, and you can put enough health on the board to protect that Mountain Giant from Volcano, then that kind of board pressure snowballs. So
Yeah.
it all comes down to Ryvius's threat checks him every turn. As soon as LionKing slips up, that's when he goes in for the kill.
And that's really the big one, is for Ryvius, in order for those threats to matter, though, he does need to get some damage in. And that has proved quite difficult in this opening versus LionKing. You know, LionKing still working on that checklist, and this, I think, is going to be the first turn he faces some, you know, real pressure getting online here. And for Ryvius, you know, I think there's a number of good options for him. He has so many threats in hand that I don't think he needs to worry about AoE at this point. I think for Ryvius right now, it's a matter of just getting the most on the board that you possibly can, forcing LionKing to use AoE and then trying to climb out of it from there. We see Hagatha picked up immediately, though, so the battle for Ryvius just got that much harder to stick a threat to the board. Now the minions that LionKing plays, it's an opportunity to generate even more removal.
Yeah, it's a pretty big pickup. Otherwise, he would have had to try and use Lightning Storm and roll high on one of the minions in order to just stop that pressure from rolling. And Ryvius going to continue tapping, and again, this threat check turn after turn.
And this is really smart from Ryvius here. He had an opportunity to use the Bone Mare, but he realizes that it's just about getting stuff online. You want the most stuff you can get. It's so much less about seizing damage and so much more about the snowball effect, that big punishing effect that comes in. So now that LionKing is face down just about all the big threats from Ryvius' deck, he's finally had a turn where it looks like he's going to stumble.
Hagatha can do some crazy stuff, but Primal Talisman is not what he wants to see. Ancestral Healing also can protect from some damage later on in the game, but with Spellbreaker in hand, it's going to be tough for LionKing unless he picks up.
Yep, smart here from a near perfect card. This is smart from LionKing too. The mind control tech is actually quite crucial because it means that Ryvius can't necessarily snowball the board that much more. So this does put some pressure on Ryvius to perhaps use the Spellbreaker right here to break through this.
Yeah. One copy of Mind Control Tech in LionKing's deck, so one thing for Ryvius is that he can be pretty comfortable that he can go wide on board and not have to worry about a crucial minion being stolen. But LionKing's goal here is to try and soften up the board enough to where Electro Storm Surge plus Lightning Storm will be able to have a good chance of clearing off most of the minions.
Yep. Right now, it is more of a control game for LionKing than it is the combo game. And I think that can be quite dangerous because Ryvius still has, you know, a pretty sizable amount of minions in hand that are significant. And at the same time, LionKing is out of card draw, and he's quickly approaching that point where Blood Reaver Gul'dan's going to get drawn. If that gets drawn before Shudderwalk shows up, that's an issue. Oh, that's Primal Task, the Totem Summon one.
Yeah,
I always think that's the one that puts him back in your hand. I always do. Not bad.
No, I actually honestly still like the Spellbreaker, though. Just because of the possibility of Snowfall Totem coming out. That's 11 extra damage that he would have pushed that turn if he had gone with Spellbreaker. So that's quite a bit.
You know, I do agree that it's quite a bit, but this is still pressuring LionKing to do something. And to me, I think that's good enough. I don't think he necessarily needed to Spellbreaker. I don't think it's a bad play. Oh, 6-cost Shudderwalk found. But there's no Grumble in the pool. There's one Sarnet Chain Gang. There's one Life Drinker, Mind Control Tech.
A Glacial Shard.
I think that LionKing can get out of this because he's found two very good pickups off the far side of Electra, but this is going to get close. You know, here for Ryvius, I think we finally arrived at the Bone Mare turn, where you just want to suit up the biggest thing you can and ask LionKing, can you handle this? Because right now, it's looking like can't really.
I wonder.
There is the Hagatha Battlecry in the pool as well. Maybe there's like a Volcano Hagatha turn. I'm sorry, Volcano Shutterwalk turn to reuse the Hagatha. You know, at this stage, LionKing may have to think about completely exhausting Ryvius's resources because I just don't think he's going to have time to hold on to Shutterwalk forever.
Yeah, but with Blood River Gul'dan, it's really hard to win that fatigue matchup, even if you're ahead in cards.
No Zolt. I mean, he just doesn't have a way to return Shutterwalk right now, so I'm just curious to see.
That's the thing, right? Because if he plays Shutterwalk, he gives up that win condition.
I mean, what's he going to do? He's going to Volcano for 40? Like,
his Lightning Storm Volcano 4th Lightning.
So let's see this. Lightning Storm.
27, 31 plus 7. There's 38 on board. Lightning Storm will average...
If Lightning Storm rolled the lowest, there'd be 30 health on board. So now Volcano, I actually think this clears. With the, that's the point. They missed, maybe 2 shots though. But here's the thing. Ryvius isn't short on pressure. He's just had the pressure the whole step of the way. The patience with Bone Mare now yields this big board state where LionKing has to answer it again, and he's overloaded for 6. He's dead.
Frost Shock would have let him survive, but even then the Spellbreaker would have been able to unfreeze.
Just overwhelmed.
Yeah,
in that game.
That's how it works out a lot of times in that matchup. You just threat check them every turn as Even Warlock, and eventually, I don't know, I'm a little bit worried for him. That's admirable.
I am too, and you know, a lot of it for me boils down to the deck list more. I think that it does the way that LionKing's been playing. You know, I look at the Control Warlock list, and I think that this is a matchup where he's more capable of taking one of those decisive wins. But on Ryvius' side afterwards, you know, I'm looking at Odd Rogue. Oftentimes a pretty bad matchup. Evenlock already got the win. I think that his lineup is going to have to try to abuse this Druid from Ryvius. It's a Malagos Druid deck. Does not have a copy of Lich King, so the threat potential more limited. It's more dedicated to fighting off against early aggro decks. Double Mind Control tech that's in there.
I think the Odd Rogue could struggle for Ryvius as well. Because there's a Control Warlock in there. There's the pretty heavily anti-aggro Control Priest.
Wait, are you saying that the Rogue is weak to the Control Warlock?
It can be. I'm just saying it might struggle against that more than... Well, okay, the one thing that makes me think the Druid struggles more is because there's actually 2 demonic projects in the Control Warlock. Not 1, 2.
But he didn't get that matchup first. He got Shutterwalk.
He got Shutterwalk first. So Ryvius, I think this is probably going to be his best chance of winning in this matchup as the series goes on. So this is a big game for him to solidify a lead in the series. Because 1-0, it tells us a lot, but not too much.
So LionKing has got the ooze for the Twig, so that can be shut down. However, the Twig does bring an interesting timing issue to LionKing, where, you know, at some point, that ooze is going to have to take up 3 mana, or you're going to ramp your opponent, you know, straight to 10, which is, you know, clearly not what you want to do. You know, I remember the first time that I actually played with Gluttonous Ooze, it was 4 Twig of the World Tree. My opponent played it, and I was like, ha, got the ooze. And I played it, and I saw their mana just go to 10, and I was like, that was a bad idea. So Twig opens up actually some opportunities for Ryvius to somewhat control when he wants to force LionKing to have to use that ooze if and when he's got it.
Yeah, and we talked about LionKing's kind of interesting approach to his lineup for the Fall Champs. And we actually had a chance to sit down earlier this week and talk to him about just what he thinks when going into the tournament about preparation.
I tend to bring some decks that I excel at the most, because I think proficiency is crucial when playing competitively in Hearthstone. Rather than bringing decks according to big data or the meta, I prefer a deck that I am good at.
I practice not the man who has played every mage 1,000 times, but the man who has played Flame Strike 10,000 times. I mean, it's got a real point, honestly. A lot of players talk about comfort picks when we're at championship time, where they don't want to second guess themselves. They don't want to be on stage with something they're unfamiliar with.
Yeah.
As much as I'd hate to keep bringing it up, you know, Blood Trail at last championships, he said with the 100 deck, he was just unfamiliar with it. Yeah. And it really showed through. All of his play outside of like 2 games has been so good, but the deck he was unfamiliar with was the one where he struggled.
Based on that interview, LionKing could have summed it all up by saying, no, I'm actually not a filthy net decker.
I want a Hatul quotes. Twitter, someone make it, please. But that unique style has shown through in pretty much every single one of his decks. You know, from the Sandbinder, which has been a lot of times trimmed out of the Shutterwalk decks, to the Control Warlock with the Double Demonic Project, Rid the First Disciple, Rotten Applebow, and even looking at the Control Priest deck, the Archbishop Benedictus, the Holy Fire, the Skulking Geist. There's a lot of tools in here that are not super common. Seeing where they play out, I'm going to be curious of.
Yeah, this is honestly about the best spreading play Grievous is going to get for a while. It just matches up with his mana. The only consideration was, by playing spreading play, he obviously gives multiple draws over to the Acolyte of Pain, which can end up being a big deal in the grand scheme of things. One of the benefits that Malygos Druid has over Shutterwalk is usually it gets its combo online faster than Shutterwalk does. But by giving additional card draw to GoeLionKing, that narrows that average gap and gives him more opportunity. With the Ooze already lined up for the Twig of the World Tree, and Shutterwalk picked up, I think he's on a good path currently, because Ryvius still hasn't hit that super powerful Druid draw that we've seen with double ramp into Ultimate Infestation.
Yep.
He had the one Wild Growth, he had the Twig, which will be answered. Has picked up a Nourish, but hasn't been able to make any proactive plays. He's just kind of been sitting back and hoping that the card off the top is the one that's going to help him solidify that lead.
And when you see the Nourish, you start to get a sense of where his mind's at with the Spreading Plague. You got to make hand space. This deck doesn't have the liberty of just doing nothing, and then when you draw card draw, just ripping it and letting it go. You got to get rid of some of the cards in your hand that are just clogging up the space there. So using the more expensive cards that aren't vital to the matchup is quite important. And you start to get a sense of, where Ryvius is at when he doesn't draw these ideal hands, when you have the slightly below average ones. There's a lot more navigating to do where that hand space is concerned. And so this turn, rather than just rip the Nourish, he's got to get more cards out of hand. Because if he nourishes into Ultimate Infestation, then you got to spend more turns unlocking that instead. So why not do it now, make the most of what you got, and then hope to pick up the pieces later.
And if he ramps with Nourish, he's not guaranteed to pick up Ultimate Infestation anyway. So he's basically
definitely a 0% ramp Nourish here.
Yeah.
If you draw UI next turn, you could use Nourish for ramp simply to make hand space.
Yeah. Simply just throw it away because you'd have the coin anyway. And also, the Twig being destroyed gives him 10 mana regardless. So really just absolutely no reason to use that Nourish for anything, as for the card draws you mentioned and for the ramp as we both mentioned. Well,
Nourish.
I thought that was Ultimate Infestation for a second, but a little bit in this floop.
Why did you say it like that?
How else are you supposed to say it?
Touche. Looking at Starfall here. Just wants more stuff out of hand, though. It's again that issue where when am I going to spend all this mana? I got to get more cards out of my hand so I can draw more cards. It's kind of a weird situation to be in. Whoa, Nelly. That is awfully defensive. I do not like this from Ryvius. You don't need value from that Spreading Plague that's in hand, which is what it looks like he's trying to set up for. You just need to get stuff out of your hand so you can rip that other Nourish and find that Alexstrasza, find that Malygos. You got to put GoeLionKing to the test because the checklist is starting to get worked on. You've lost your Twig. You got Floop in hand. You got to giddy up.
The one reason I can think of why he went for that play, it's going into turn 8. GoeLionKing's not overloaded, so Hagatha could be on his mind. He's thinking, well, if I use a resource to kill off my opponent's board going into a turn that he may kill off his own board, then I've wasted a resource.
Yeah, it's not a waste, though.
I do agree with you that mana is kind of the most limiting resource for Ryvius at this point, because he needs to draw cards and have enough mana to be able to expend the cards that he's not going to use with his combo. Starfall being one of the biggest ones, that's 5 mana.
It's weird to think about it, but his hand space right now is effectively real estate, and the more that you take up, the less new stuff you can build. This is a problem. If he draws another big card draw spell here, now you're just gonna have to rip the Starfall just to get rid of it. This would have been 9 cards in hand. You'd be looking at a Plague, Coin, Nourish turn to refill up to 9 cards, draw back up to 10. Instead, it's clogged down, and he's got to wait a turn to do that.
What about this? Spreading Plague, naturalize your own Scarab.
Honestly, that's probably one of his better plays at the moment because LionKing's got 9 cards in hand. And when I'm looking at this hand, and I'm seeing 13 cards left in deck, and it's difficult for me to draw, I just got to get stuff out of hand. I don't even mind playing the flute that much, but I really don't want to have to play this. If he'd used that Starfall last turn, this wouldn't have had to happen. That's got to bring some amount of relief to LionKing here. Second Chain Gang online now, so we're looking for Grumble. We're looking for a Life Drinker. You know, with the Floop gone, with the Twig gone, this is just... I think that Ryvius missed an opportunity here, and it's going to really cost him. Interrupted myself. Usually I interrupt TJ.
You're gosh darn right you do.
What to do?
I'm upset.
I could tell.
You know, this is the kind of stuff that happens, too, when you're thinking about the stakes in play and you're thinking about the elimination match. You don't want to just waste your resources. It's like an apprehensiveness that you don't have if you're playing on ladder. When you're playing on ladder, you just queue up another game if you lose. You don't really think about it. And now, coins... See what I mean? That Goose would be in hand this turn, and he would have slammed Dream Petal Florist instead.
Yeah.
He would have still had the Floop in hand as well. It's a snowball effect that might be quite costly as this game moves on.
Yeah, I feel like in this matchup, just using up as much mana as you can each turn, throwing away resources and getting to your combo faster than your opponent can get to their combo is the way to go. Kind of brings me back to the old Freeze Mage mirrors. Where
just Blizzard boards.
you just literally spend the most expensive AoE spell you could each turn on nothing just to get it out of your hand.
Draw 4 cards and slam 2 Doomsayers into an empty board where your opponent has no minions in their deck.
Yeah. I mean, that's the kind of direction that combo versus combo kind of goes. And I feel like LionKing's just been able to empty his hand much more efficiently and draw more cards much more efficiently than Ryvius has in this game. Granted, I think it's been a little easier for him because he has more proactive plays. Being able to play out Serenite Chain Gang and Life Drinkers makes that game plan a bit easier.
Still missing the Grumble or the Zola for LionKing, though. Both of those cards in the bottom 5 cards of his deck.
Yeah.
And the Sandbinder. The Sandbinder's also in the bottom 5 cards of the deck. So the card that LionKing had teched in to help assemble that combo is also there. This is like massively unlucky for LionKing. And now Ryvius, because he slowed himself down, just may give him that time. So he might not even be able to capitalize on the fact that situation's come up for him. This game is so crucial. And it feels like it's just way out of reach for Ryvius.
Well, Ryvius does have a 30 damage combo still remaining, even with Floop and Twig gone. With the reduced cost Malagos, double Swipe, which is 18, plus double Moonfire, which is 30. So he just needs to chip away that 1 point of armor and pick up 1 more Moonfire. So he's actually still just close.
Well, the thing is, though, that LionKing has Hagatha as well. So I actually want to see this Hagatha get online to just generate some armor. And with 3 cards left, like, Ryvius has to know that LionKing, you know, may just not have one of those pieces in hand. He didn't play a Grumble this turn. He didn't play a Zola this turn. Like, can you put him in Fatigue and then hope to find that last card and then burst him out?
Yeah.
This is nuts. This is like watching that Surrender game at Summer where you ended up in a situation where, was it Shadow Reaper Anduin, or was the last card in Surrender's deck? Yeah.
Mental dislocator.
So he does fit into hero power here, so he brings him down, but...
Second Moonfire is, you know, in Ryvius' bottom 3. This is quite rare that combos take this long to put together. Oh my gosh.
I think that's a.
Are
It
you
has to be a
kidding?
guaranteed draw Grumble. There it is.
Yeah, well, yeah, Zola's the last card in the deck.
But if
the
this is-
last 2 cards in the deck were his ways to activate the Shutterwalk. And with Rivia's 2 cards left, I mean, I'm tempted to just fling a UI in his face. You go into fatigue, but the thing about it is Lion King needs to have armor or you have 30 from hand damage.
Yeah.
So that forces them to play Hagatha on that turn. You go into fatigue still, but you know, you have Malfurion to back that up. I feel like Rivius with the 2 naturalizes, I feel like he gets there this game.
Yeah, I think Lion King just took him too long to assemble the combo. Rivius. Even with Hagatha, with Lion King approaching fatigue, he could just Malfurion Hero Power face, and that sets Lion King down enough to where he can't Hagatha and Healing Rain. So if Moonfire is not just his very last card, he wins next turn. He can also double naturalize, which effectively does the same thing.
So if he plays Malfurion, he gets to hit for 3 with the Malfurion Hero Power. He gets to hit 3 with this, so he's taking out the necessity for Moonfire if he does that. And if he naturalizes, he puts Lion King into fatigue. So I feel like Rivius makes another pretty big misstep here by conserving resources. You know, that seems to be a theme of the game here for Rivius. He's been so conservative hanging on to cards that he has an opportunity, I think, to deliver like an uncounterable lethal turn.
I wonder.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure he's got it locked anyway. Lion King, he doesn't have a way to get up above 30. And 30's, you know, coming up in 2 turns.
Yeah, Grumble and Zola, which are basically the only 2 ways that you can get Shutterwalk back into your hand to be able to go for the infinite combo. Where, and the bottom 2 cards of his deck.
That is just the Sandbinder down there too. It's just such a weird game.
Yeah.
I feel like though after watching it, Rivius had a chance to seize a much bigger advantage and didn't take it.
Yeah.
Quite fortunate that it panned out this way for him.
Lightning can strike twice.
I'm almost out of cards.
Alex, you play that. Here you go, Lion King.
I bring life.
Yeah. Moonfire's the last card. There's no way for Lion King to get above that threshold. This is going to be 1 damage, 2 damage, plus 3 damage. So 10 total. So not quite enough. It's just game. Rivius has 30 damage from hand next turn.
What to do?
And with the Malagos Druid winning, Lion King's got to control Warlock with 2 demonic projects left versus the odd rogue of Rivius.
That is a massive liability.
Yeah.
He better hope he has Skull plus both Void Lords in hand very early on in the game.
Just demonic project the Hench Clan Thug into a something stupid, and then you just keep hitting all the minions, just blowing up his curve by turning his Hench Clan Thugs into big minions. But yeah, got sometimes.
Yep. 30 damage combo plus for Rivius, plus the additional fatigue damage that he would have taken at the beginning of his next turn.
This I'll tell you what though, this game was not ideal for Rivius. He had many opportunities to accelerate this pace and didn't take them. That could have been costly, but he's fortunate to see from Lion King that those major combo cards are in the bottom 2 cards of the deck.
Yep.
And Rivius is gonna, you know, if he's gonna get out of this group, he's gonna have to tighten up that play, because if you keep playing that slow versus players who don't have those less than ideal situations, far less than ideal situations, you're gonna get punished.
Yeah, keep in mind, this is an elimination match. Both these players lost their initial group match, so if they want to make it to the quarterfinals, they not only have to win this series, they have to win another series this afternoon in order to book their spot in the quarterfinals. So a lot of work still left to do, and type play is what's going to do that, especially with how just lights out we've seen the top players of each group playing.
Oh yeah.
I feel like there's been a stark difference of level of play between like the top half and the bottom halves of each of this group. I said at the beginning of the day, the play has been kind of declining slowly over the last two. Memorable. This is the most action-packed day of Hearthstone you're going to see all weekend.
I thought you were going to say all day. I was like, that's right, TJ, because this is the day I'm going to see.
Yeah, this is today's the long days. 8 matches, 4 eliminations, 4 deciders, and we're only 2 games in.
Woo!
I could not be more excited for this Saturday.
God, I love Hearthstone.
Yeah, same. I do as well. GoeLionKing currently has a 2-0 lead in the series over GoeLionKing. And looks poised to take it because his last remaining deck is Odd Rogue.
And it's odd. It's not just Odd Rogue. It's Odd Rogue versus the Shutterwalk Shaman, which I think is a little bit bigger of a payoff for GoeLionKing than the rest of his decks. But it's a Control Warlock featuring 2 demonic projects. I'd say a pretty favorable matchup for Ryvius. And then a Control combo priest with a Holy Fire, a Skulking Geist, and an Archbishop Benedictus. GoeLionKing was not, I think, expecting aggression coming into the day, and he didn't really face aggression. He just kind of faced some straightforward deck lists throughout this event so far, and the card choices that he's made to try to impact those matchups, I feel like are coming up short. These previous 2 games, I feel like it was a matter of him just getting overwhelmed by the Even Warlock, not finding the combo pieces, being really unfortunate to see them in the bottom section of his deck. This one is a little bit more containable from the pressure side of things.
Yeah, you have a ton of removal, healing, weapon removal, taunts, card draw.
It's about timing.
Shutterwalk.
It's really about the timing of volcanoes and lightning storms, I think. For GoeLionKing, I don't always think it's necessarily about just using them as soon as possible, but sometimes it's recognizing when using them sooner rather than later is a major benefit. And some of that's going to come from hand reading. He's going to have to take into account the minions that Ryvius is playing and what that means for his hand. So here, for instance, if Ryvius fails to pick up a significant 3-drop, this is going to give GoeLionKing some information. Whether he sees SI7 Agent or whether he sees Blood Knight, or, neither of those, he's going to know that Ryvius does not have the ideal hand, doesn't have the Hench Clan Thugs, and so then the next worry would be Fungalmancer. That's where the big read's going to come in. Timing the Volcano, not necessarily to prevent Fungalmancer, but sometimes to take the damage, then offset the Fungalmancer.
Yeah.
I think that when you see weak minions from your opponent, that letting them Fungalmancer and following up has more merit than when you see the ideal minions.
Yeah. Kells had found from GoeLionKing, though.
It's a big deal if you start drawing Saronite chain gangs.
Yeah, Kel'Seth in Shutterwalk Shaman doesn't have as high of an impact on win rate as, let's say, Zoo Warlock. But it does impact it quite substantially. Just because there are just a ton of minions in the deck. Even just having your Acolyte of Pains be 2/4s, or your Sola be a 3/3, or Mind Control Tech be a 4/4. Your Manti Totems are 1/4s, Nathan.
This is an interesting spot from Ryvius here, too, where he attacks with the dagger twice in a row. So GoeLionKing could have probably gotten the initial read that there wasn't a Hench Clan Thug in hand given the attack. The second attack, however, is more from Ryvius' side, where he's trying to play around the Gluttonous Ooze. It seems like he's trying to have that not be a natural turn 3 and instead force the coin from GoeLionKing.
I will show you.
GoeLionKing, I think, wisely coins in this situation because of that weak minion play from Ryvius.
Yeah.
Now able to potentially let a Fungalmancer happen and then Volcano.
Yeah.
If he didn't have, the bad minion come out in the Blood Knight, I think he would have been able to find a situation where he can wait, save the coin, and then coin to prevent a Fungalmancer instead.
This play does give GoeLionKing a pretty good setup for the use, but it is mana inefficient. So it would be delaying Saronite Chain Gang. I think that's what might be on Ryvius' mind, and the reason why he goes for Deadly Poison over, say, Firefly Flame or Firefly SI7 Agent trade over the South Sea deckhand.
Yep, and Ryvius kind of struggling to put together significant pressure here. The ooze, you know, quite a big deal with the poison out on it. Normally it's just a fine disruption tool. In this situation, it's a pretty big deal, honestly.
Yeah.
He's got Vile Spine coming up, but pretty low impact in the match overall.
And this is kind of Odd Rogue in these kind of combo matchups reminds me a lot of like a hunter, like a mid-range hunter. I feel like you need to fit in hero powers and just attack whenever you can.
Oh yeah.
So where this turn he has the opportunity to go for like flame elemental,
not trading.
No. Oh no.
Ryvius is he's telling you it's the stage nerves that are causing this conservative play from Ryvius. You know, I look back to playoffs where he brought like a full Mechathune lineup basically, and he was so decisive in his play. He was so aggressive. You see him just slinging cards on the board, not caring.
Yeah.
This feels like the opposite of that Ryvius I saw at playoffs. And that timid play, I feel like is costing him a lot of position here. See, LionKing, when he sees that trade and the Tar Creeper oftentimes protects your board to get to a Fungalmancer turn. I think LionKing, you know, knows quite easily that there's no Fungalmancer there when Ryvius plays the Tar Creeper on turn 5. And then when he trades, it looks like he's trying to buy time for his minions so that he can find a Fungalmancer. Easy Volcano for LionKing, and then the pressure here is like, just feels like almost nothing to me.
Yeah, that AoE would have been forced anyway. He just would have been able to push 4 or 3 extra damage that turn. So, normally, well, not normally. There's sometimes where I don't agree with you with the base play, but that's one that I just feel really stands out as you just got to go.
He had the ideal. He had a Tar Creeper in the way.
Yeah.
Can't be afraid of lightning storms like that. Hit him. You got a Leroy.
And even then, he's still piecing together quite a bit of damage here. With Leroy in hand and just a redagger up, that's 8 from hand. If he picks up Cold Blood, well, he's already in the range of lethal damage.
So Ryvius is thinking about mind control tech here, and I think that's, once again, the wrong position to be in. I think that this is a kill the life drinker, force LionKing to have another answer to this. In this position, now LionKing gets to you know, slow the game down, take it on his terms. It is a little bit of a hidden lethal if Ryvius manages to draw a Cold Blood. You know, you're not always anticipating Leroy. Really trying to protect. So is protected from that play, but you know, imagine if Ryvius had used that Vile Spine last turn. That would have been Electra Lightning Storm instead, I believe.
Probably.
Instead, now it's extend here. You have this one offset, and then LionKing starts approaching the Hagatha turn. Doesn't have Hagatha yet, but finds another life drinker, though.
Unfortunately, I think this has to be Electra plus Lightning Storm turn, but if he survives one more turn, that's a life drinker that can come online.
I don't think that's unfortunate for LionKing right now. I think you're actually quite happy with that because Ryvius only has the 1 card left.
True, yeah.
A lot of this matchup is about choking out your opponent more than it is about assembling your combo.
Yeah, and it's probably either Fungalmancer or Leroy Jenkins at this point.
Lightning can strike twice.
Or Myra's, or Baku. Either way, you're pretty darn happy.
Yeah.
Except for the Myra's. You're pretty sad about
Myra's,
that one.
Yeah, but at this point you say, well, I lose to Myra's a lot of the time, so I have to just assume that that's Fungalmancer or Leroy. I honestly don't even think that would have changed his play.
It's Cold Blood.
Hey, Admirable. Imagine if Ryvius had pushed that extra 3 damage a few turns back.
That's been the story of aggro in this tournament, is that the decisions are so snowbally. Aggro moved away from these burn styles and moved more towards Fungalmancer. And since that has happened, I feel like a lot of players have failed to completely adjust to that idea, where you need to get in damage where you can get in damage. A 3-3 attacking a minion while all you have is 3-3s doesn't protect any of your other minions. It doesn't really do anything. It just costs you damage. That's what your opponent's going to do. They're going to use their 3-3 to attack your 3-3. Take a drink.
Of life.
Whoa. No, no, no. You know that your opponent's hand is like Baku, Leroy, Cold Blood. I very disagree with this. very disagree. Well,
Very agree.
Hakuna Matata. What on earth? That is just a blunder. Finds the perfect card for it, but that is just not okay. It's really not. And the nerves are really getting to the players right now. And if this is how they're going to be playing the whole weekend, it's going to be a long weekend. This is the fall championships, TJ. I get there's a lot at stake, but you got to tighten this up. That is just risking dying. In fact, had he not hit either a taunt totem or the healing rain, he dies.
Yep.
Sarnite Chain Gang, I take it back. That one also helped. But still, why take the risk when you can prevent it entirely?
He could have been worried about, let's say Ryvius had the perfect like 3-card combo or two 3-card combo. But I feel like if those 2 cards were part of that combo, he would have died last turn.
Oh yeah.
So that's my concern with that play is I get it. He's trying to look for Serenite Chain Gang or Healing Rain specifically to try and guarantee that he lives through anything. But when you have a play that almost guarantees based on the read you had last turn, your opponent would have killed you if you had the perfect cards. I think you just go for the consistent play, then follow it up the next turn with the Far Sight and try and draw some cards. He's also drawing a card at the end of the turn, so pretty rough. And now this is out of Ryvius' hands. He's got no Leroy. Myra's off the top would just kill him.
Myra's
because
cold blood poison. That's what he's got to be. Myra's into 2 cold bloods and a deadly poison.
Yeah. And that's game.
If Ryvius had pushed 3 extra damage, we would not be going to game 4. If GoeLionKing had not drawn one of the important utility cards to stop damage from Ryvius, we wouldn't be going to game 4.
But guess what, Admirable?
We're going to game 4. Did I guess right?
Yeah.
Once your region, you get seeded to the World Championships. And right now he's neck and neck with Tyler,
Yeah.
who is also in this tournament.
There's a lot of pomp and circumstance around the championships. We fly the players out, 5 days before their first match. We interview them. We film all these media pieces. We show them around the studio in Los Angeles, and to come all this way and go through all that, and then 0-2 out of the tournament is probably one of the most scary things for players on this stage.
I definitely think so.
So I can understand that there's a lot of pressure on both these players to perform, and that's not even considering the outside factors. Ryvius with the point standings situation going on with Tyler and Shaxi, GoeLionKing with just trying to finally get that big HCT win after playing the game competitively for 4 years. I mean, that's a ton on the line.
I think you said that perfectly. I understand. But that's the kind of perseverance you have to get through these games.
Yeah, and then you come to the championship and you bring 2 control priest decks.
You're gonna fire shots at somebody for you saying it wrong.
Oh man. Sorry. Big
GoeLionKing pretty limited in plays here. This is to attempt to offset the Hench Clan Thug, which is the ideal minion for Ryvius. Not the minion he wants to see, but does have a way to kill this Wild Pyromancer and get this Hench Clan Thug rolling. GoeLionKing going to be forced to mass dispel, and that means the board's going to start getting a bit out of control, and that damage is going to start adding up.
Could find Dustbreaker, but oh no dragon. Yeah, can't find Dustbreaker.
And currently no play slotted for turn 5. No play slotted for turn 5, and if he does not draw a turn 5 play, this could get really ugly. Ryvius is going to be thinking about Dustbreaker here, but when you see your opponent rip that Mass Dispel on that Hench Clan Thug, I think this is a situation where you look at your hand and you go, I got to risk something. So rather than take a major risk, Ryvius is going to once again be conservative. I think this conservation has more merit than his previous ones. However, I'd still like to see him get a little bit more aggressive here and put GoeLionKing to the test, because if he had played that Sousy deckhand, GoeLionKing down to 16, you'd be staring at 7, 8, 9 on the board with 6 more in hand. Deadly Poison, Cold Blood, all those would threaten lethal at that point. He gives Lion King time to offset it, and I think that's really the issue here.
Still a long ways to go for stabilization for Lion King, though. At least he picks up a play on turn 5, so he's not just heal passing. He's got something to fight for the board with.
That South Sea Deckhand in hand could have been 4 total damage and still counting.
Yeah. Could also just give him an easier way to trade onto this board without sacrificing too much damage as well, since it would have already been there. That mana utilization would have already been there.
You know, with the Dire Maul and the South Sea in hand, I look at it and I wonder, why is it still here? I feel like that should have just been damage. I get that you're afraid of Dustbreaker, but that card's going to hurt almost no matter when that card happens.
And he probably had, I'd assume that, judging by the way the previous turn went with the Hench Clan Thug, you would Dustbreak in that situation, because that's a massive board.
Sometimes you would, but the Master Spell does set the Hench Clan Thug to 3 health. And so if you deploy more minions, they're all in that 3 health range. Your opponent could be trying to bait you into developing more because your Hench Clan Thug isn't significant.
Yeah.
So, he does have some merit to saving stuff, but I feel like forcing it sooner rather than later is more ideal. This has got to stop. Wait. He's got to stop trading.
Also, he traded the Hench Clan Thug instead of the South Sea Deckhand.
Thinking Cabal Shadow Priest would be the main reason why?
Yeah, it's still 2 attack, though. I suppose.
The 2-1 versus the 2-3,
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah.
But I feel like Ryvius he's trading so much that he's giving Lion King time. Look at that Shutterwalk game where the last 2 cards were what enabled Shutterwalk. If he's giving Lion King that much time when he's playing an aggressive deck, he doesn't have that giant endgame inevitability that he had with Malagos Druid. Yeah. See, this trade makes a lot of sense. This Dire Maul is 1 damage, and it protects stuff that you have on board.
It would be very funny if he didn't trade.
What is going on, man? Sottle's telling me this is right. I don't disagree, but I do.
Yeah, I think Psychic Scream going into turn 7, that's the only reason why. Oh boy. Myra's.
Going into my opponent's 8-mana turn, I'm pretty darn tempted to use this Leroy. And the reason is because I have Myra's and 2 South Sea Deckhands just got shuffled into my deck. So drawing a Poison, drawing a South Sea Deckhand and a Cold Blood, all of those things can end up in big damage. He's going to go for the Myra's now, though. Don't mind that either. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
I'm out of cards.
He picked up very little just damage from hand from that Myra's.
That is just a bad Myra's.
No Cold Bloods, no Deadly Poisons. Mind you, this was before Skulking Geist was played, so those were still in the deck.
I think that's one of the reasons that he likely went for Myra's so promptly too, is thinking about Skulking Geist. Like, I need to find these before my opponent rips them out of the deck.
Yep.
Maybe he just draws Skulking Geist and gets to shred that damage. But, it still ends up fairly okay because of the Fungalmancer. Lion King has to pay a lot of respect to just these couple of 1/3s on board.
I must consider.
One of the few times that Psychic Scream, I think, is a liability is when your opponent Myra's unstable elements.
And he's still taking a beating. He's going to try and hold on to that Psychic Scream for as long as possible, but I think as long as possible is about right now.
Yeah. Down to 8. And honestly, I don't think Psychic Scream's going to get him there. Alex Straza leaves him dead. Got to heal up to not die to Leroy. And if that South Sea Deckhand gets drawn, or that Fungalmancer gets drawn, nope, it's the Dire Maul. Goodness gracious. The players have been experiencing, I think, some unfortunate luck as well.
It's not just been on one side, though. It's been on kind of both.
And it's like compounding the issue of the stress that they're going through as well.
Yeah. because you know, Ryvius has drawn Leroy in his top 4 cards and built him his odd road games. Both players had their key combo pieces in the well past the bottom half of their deck in the Shadow Walk versus Malagos Druid game. GoeLionKing has been a Dustbreaker away from a blowout on like 3 different turns potentially.
Yeah, I think Ryvius is supposed to deploy the Blood Knight here as well. It's nigh impossible for LionKing to handle the giant minion and the small board at the same time. There's no Shadow Word Death in the deck. And Shadowy Branduin's only going to leave with 2 mana left. So I think this is checkmate. Need about 5 Mind Blasts to get out of this one.
Light has betrayed me.
Wouldn't the damage and killing off the Galen Inventor with the Shadow Branduin Hero Power have been better?
It would have been, but it's 15 damage out of the way here with this. Yeah, with the Fungalmancer and the Leroy Jenkins.
LionKing just had to hope that Ryvius did not have Leroy in that Myra's draw, but unfortunately for him, he does. And Ryvius, after a tight, I want to say a rough series for both players, he finds the win and keeps himself alive in the Fall Championship.